When you hear the word millionaire, what's the first thing you picture? Is it some tech billionaire in a private jet? Maybe a celebrity with a ridiculous mansion? Or, someone who just got a massive inheritance? For years, that's the story we've all been sold. But what if I told you that almost everything we think we know about millionaires is completely wrong? Okay, let's get into it.
So let's ask that question for real. If you were walking down the street, could you actually spot a millionaire in a crowd? Well, the data says probably not, because the real millionaire next door, they look a lot more like you and me than you'd ever guess.
Okay, let's just start with a bombshell. This comes from a huge study of over 10,000 millionaires. 79% of them, let that sink in, nearly 8 out of 10 received absolutely no inheritance, not a dime. They started from zero. And get this, a full 1/3 of them, 1 out of every 3, never once made a 6-figure salary in any single year of their entire career. I mean, think about that. This isn't a story about huge paychecks. It's a story about something else entirely.
So, right off the bat, this brings us to our first major myth we're going to tear down. We are constantly fed this idea, especially in movies and TV, that wealth is something you're just born into. But, oh man, the research tells a totally different story.
And here it is, side by side. The myth is the whole silver spoon fantasy. The reality, though, backed up by all this data, is that the vast majority, we're talking 8 out of 10, came from families with middle-class incomes or even lower. They didn't have a safety net. They had to build their own. And check out this chart. It breaks it down so clearly. Yeah, that 79% with no inheritance is the headline. But look closer. Only 21% got any inheritance at all. And the group that inherited $1 million or more, that's a tiny, tiny 3%. It just goes to show you, for almost everybody, the path to becoming a millionaire is not a hand-me-down.
Okay, so if it's not inherited money, then it's got to be an elite education, right? You have to go to Harvard or Yale to make it big. Well, let's see what the numbers have to say about that.
Here's what most people get wrong. We get so hung up on the brand name of a college, but we completely forget about what people do after they graduate. The data's clear. Yeah, 88% of millionaires graduated college, but the school's prestige, that was not the secret sauce.
And this chart just hammers the point home. Look at this. 62% of the millionaires in the study went to a public state school. And at prestigious, expensive private school, only 8%. It's so clear it's not about the fancy name on the diploma. It's about getting an education you can use to build a future without being buried in debt.
Now, wait a minute. Let's play devil's advocate here for a second, because it's super important to ask where this data is coming from. A lot of this research is from a massive study done by Dave Ramsey's team. And, like this comment points out, a lot of the people in the study were already following his advice. So, some critics argue this could create what's called a survivorship bias. We might only be hearing from the people who succeeded with this one specific method. And you know what? That's a totally fair point to bring up. But even with that in mind, these findings are still just so counterintuitive that they completely challenge what most of us believe about building wealth.
All right, this next part is where it gets really, really fascinating. We've busted the inheritance myth. We've busted the fancy degree myth. So if it's not about where you come from or where you went to school, then it has to be about having some high-powered, crazy high-paying job, right?
So just take a second. What jobs pop into your head? I'm betting you're thinking, surgeon, Wall Street banker, tech CEO, something like that. Are you ready for the actual list? Because it might surprise you.
Okay, let's do this. Coming in at number 5 is attorney. Makes sense. Number 4, management. Okay, sure, I can see that. Number 3, teacher. Wait, what? No, seriously. Teacher is number 3 on the list of top professions for creating millionaires. Rounding out the list, you have accountant at number 2 and engineer at number 1. The fact that teachers, who we all know aren't paid a ton, are on this list, that's the biggest clue to what's really going on here.
And that's it. That is the absolute core of this entire explainer. It has almost nothing to do with the size of your paycheck. Wealth isn't built by what you make. It's built by what you keep and what you grow over time. That is the secret.
So, if all the old myths are just plain wrong, then what's the truth? What do these everyday millionaires actually do to build their wealth? Let's take a look at the real playbook that the data gives us.
It all starts with this one foundational habit. And honestly, it sounds way too simple, but 94% of millionaires say they live on less than they make. It's not sexy, it's not glamorous, but it is the absolute non-negotiable first step on the path.
So here it is, the actual playbook.
They invest consistently. 8 out of 10 just use their company's 401k. They avoid debt like the plague. Nearly 3/4 have never carried a credit card balance. They spend smart. A shocking 93% still use coupons when they shop. And maybe the most important part, they are patient. This isn't a get-rich-quick thing. They are disciplined planners who build wealth slowly and methodically over time.
And really, that's the ultimate lesson here. The average person in this huge study finally hit that $1 million mark around age 49. It took them an average of 28 years of working and saving and investing. This is a marathon, not a sprint. Wealth is built in decades, not days.
So what does this all mean? The evidence is pretty overwhelming. Becoming a millionaire seems to be less about luck or your family tree and way more about discipline and time. It's actually an achievable goal for many people, and it's rooted in these surprisingly ordinary, almost boring habits. Which leaves us with one last question for you to think about. What's the biggest millionaire myth you used to believe?